the cloud, then I don't have to store it.
That's the way to do it.
Now, does it show that I'm recording? Oh yeah, there's my little cloud. Okay, cool. Did it even tell you though, or is it secret?
It shows that it's recording, but it didn't give the little pop-up.
Usually it says recording in progress. Yeah. All right. Well, let's call it to order. Does anybody want to take notes in the agenda or as you see fit? Or I don't mind if you can tolerate me typing and trying to facilitate to just be a little bit slower. You want to take notes, Dan?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. All right. Well, you want a second to get yourself set up there?
Yeah, you can go ahead and start. I can catch up.
Okay. Well, let's call the meeting to order officially at 2:03. There is no old business because we've never met before. So next meeting, we might have some old business, but today everything's new business. So thought it would be appropriate for us to review the committee's charge. And I typed that into a document that I started taking notes on that's in our folder. And I will just copy and throw a copy of that in the chat or a link to that in the chat if you want to just have a quick look at it. Basically, the charge was to negotiate the contract within the realm of the motion that the board provided, that's in parentheses, to get the website started, set up meetings, and then get the website up and running. Those were the specifics of the charge. Seems pretty clear. The proposal's pretty clear. There is financial information in the proposal. They did send a recent contract to Bill, which he sent to me, which I put in that folder as well, so that we could access it. So the contract is there. I think, though, it is going to get returned. And Rich has requested that the amount be included on the contract, but there's no financial information on it. So he's going to work that out with Bill to ask Edgeworks to give us an updated contract that includes the dollar value that they proposed. I think it's on page 22 of the proposal.
It's an interesting thing to leave off a contract.
I thought so too. I mean, I guess it's in the proposal, but you'd think we would want to reiterate it in the contract. I mean, seems like that's pretty standard, but hey. All right, so any questions or information to add or take away from the charge?
No.
Cool. All right, next item is to review the proposal, and I linked that into the agenda. It's also in the folder for our documents, but Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you like to kind of, give us the Reader's Digest version of the proposal?
Yeah, that's putting me on the spot. I haven't read it recently.
That's fine. If you don't want to, that's fine. Has everybody had a chance to look through it?
I'm happy to. You got to give me a few minutes to read through it really quickly.
No worries. Like I said, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, I can go over some of the basic information. Let's start with their platform. It's a proprietary platform that will require us to maintain the website with them in perpetuity. And if I remember correctly, the dollar figure was something in the neighborhood of 18,000-20,000.
Yeah, I think it was 19 something.
And that includes all of the required elements that were in the RFP. Matt, you want to add the RFP to that that directory just so people have it?
Yeah, I think it is there. It's called River Valley's USD proposal. Is that the RFP, Mark?
You mean our request?
Nope. That's Edgeworks proposal.
Yeah, and now I know what you're talking about. I got them confused.
Yeah, and I scrolled down to page 22, so it's 18.9 is the dollar amount.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I don't have my hands right on the RFP, Mark. Do you want me to go through?
I'll add it. You can also you can get to it at No, it's not online anymore. I'll add it to the
Okay, yeah,
to the
that'd be
directory.
great.
And then all of the work for the non-required elements, the or nice to have elements, are going to be charged on an hourly basis. And if I remember correctly, $75 an hour for content and $90 an hour for programming, something along those lines. From conversations that I had with people that have used them, references, they're very fair with their charging. So I'm not too worried about going overboard, but one of the reasons that I wanted us to have the full 30,000 that the taxpayers allocated was so that we could go for those additional items if we so want. For example, if we want any sort of integration with what's the Power School?
Power School.
That will require, they have Power School as an API, so it will require some programming. So just as an example. I don't know, is there anything else specific you want me to cover, Matt?
Well, I'd just like to add, they have actually laid out a timeline. They have this 3-phase timeline. So
Right.
that's one of the things I was thinking we might have to do today, but quite frankly, it's all laid out there. They've got 4 weeks for this, 6 weeks for that. So I think for us, it's just going to be kind of a matter of making sure they're sticking to the timeline if there are any issues that they come up with. I think they have an annual training, which they do annually if we like, $250 a pop. Around the start of the school year, we probably would want to do it over the summer. And then you were right, Mark, on the hourly rates, $90 for programming, $70 for creative, or $75 an hour for concept creation, design, production, that kind of stuff.
And I in my communicating with Ed, and I can't remember his last name, I asked him to give us any homework in preparation for our February 2nd meeting. And he essentially said they don't usually do that, but because of the Zoom nature of things and to streamline meetings, he's going to put some questions down so that we can have those prepared ahead of time for him. I have not received those yet. Obviously, I'll send it out to everybody when I get that.
That sounds good. I mean, I think the scope of what they've provided, obviously, it's been scrutinized by the board, and it hits the marks that we were trying to go for. I kind of have a question for those of you guys that are familiar, and I don't know how familiar everybody is, but do you have any concerns about the in perpetuity of this proprietary platform? That's kind of alliterative, wasn't it? In terms of, are you concerned about that, or are we okay with that? I'd love to hear from you guys that have the tech background.
Give me 1 second. And yes, I do have concerns.
Okay.
I think, we've started to talk about some of that before with one of the other companies that we were considering, and it kind of led us to this point too, to reconsider our direction, and talking about, the WordPress format versus others. From the sounds of it, I guess, Mark has a lot more experience in this than I do for sure. But the requirement to continue to use them for hosting and any updating that might be needed. I'm certainly hopeful that this is an outstanding experience and that we will want to continue, in perpetuity with them. That just makes sense, from the relationship and the cost standpoint to do so. But I, very interested to hear Mark's thoughts. But I think a lot will be determined, as the course of action is commenced.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Chad. Mark, Chad was just saying how he's interested in hearing your thoughts about this. You have more experience, and certainly you've obviously brought up a concern, which I'm not even sure we have any influence over at this point in the game, but this is an opportunity for us to at least get some ideas out on the table. So you want to add anything to that?
At this point, I don't think we have, I think the board has spoken. Edgeworks was not my first choice, mainly because of the proprietary nature of their platform. We're stuck with them. I mean, the good thing is their hosting is really inexpensive. It's what, less than $400 a year, which is really, if we went to a WordPress host on our own, we could probably do it for $125 a year or $200, but then we're doing all the maintenance. So, for $400 a year, even if we don't use any of their services, I think we're in good shape. So, I like portability. That's, having spent a few decades in the IT world, I like portability, but we're not going to have it here. So I just think it's a fact of life. And I think that Edgeworks, of the proprietary platforms that we looked at, and I'd say probably about half of the 22 bids that we got were proprietary platforms. Edgeworks was by far the best in regards to their fee structures, and mainly their fee structures. That we weren't going to be talking about tens of thousands of dollars to make, add a page or something, as we would with many of the other platforms. So again, at this point, I think it is what it is.
Yep. Derek, do you have any feeling about that whole proprietary?
Yeah, I think it's just like the switching costs. If you ever want to like go somewhere else, it'd be a pain to, I'll say anything actually being able to migrate anywhere else from this. But I mean, the hosting, it's a little on the pricey side, but like you said, it's all proprietary code that they're writing, so they can manage the environment, and it'll work the way that they want it to. They'll be able to update the code easier and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We certainly can address the question of being able to migrate out with them if we want.
Yeah. I was just going to suggest that. I mean, we have had some, well, let's see, it was probably 15 years ago. We had a host for our email service, and we were paying a hosting service. We were paying another company to manage it. And then we decided to change platforms, and they said, yeah, sure, you can buy your data for $25,000 from us. And so it might be worth at least us asking up front, let's say in 5 years, we don't see this relationship being a match. What would our options for getting out with our data be? Or are there none? And we just have to take the risk that we're going to love them forever. I
think that's a good question to ask them.
Yeah, maybe we can put it on our list for when we meet with them on the 2nd. Tammy, do you have anything you want to add about that whole platform stuff?
No, I think it's all pretty clear. It sounds like you will be sticking with them based on the contract.
Anybody have any issues or questions about the proposal? The next step obviously would be, if we can get the contract with the money on it, that the superintendent would sign this proposal based on the board's direction. But does anybody have any questions about it before we proceed with that in the next week or so? Okay, seeing none.
Chad,
yeah.
Chad, you look like you've got something to say.
Yeah, I got to grimace a little bit. Because again, it sounds like, we're ready to sign a contract for their proposal price, which is great. However, how do we address any of the add-ons? Like as Mark mentioned, integration of PowerSchool, some of the other things that might come about, some of the wants that are above the needs, but within the budget, and again, I understand, and as I was advocating as we were in this decision-making process and creating this committee to, we're not here to spend the entire budget. We do have a fiscal responsibility to, the entire community. So, I certainly want to be as smart as we can with our resources by all means. But what are how are we going to address it? Maybe that's something that we need to discuss with Ed and Cynthia, next week, how do we address these add-ons that we feel would be advantageous, to our mission, cost-wise?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. And, it seems to me they could either be taken, the add-ons could either be taken one at a time, or I can imagine us saying, for example, my gosh, it would be really convenient to have Power School finances integrated in the website so that parents could pay for their kids' lunch and snack,
Right.
online. So then we might charge them to say, all right, guys, can you go out and give us an estimate on what it would cost to integrate Power School from a pay or what's the term I'm looking for?
Portal.
Per diem.
Where it's monetized, where the site is monetized, where it can accept credit cards and EBTs and other
Right.
things. And then they come back and they say, okay, that's going to be $5,000. And then we bring that back to the board and we say, all right, it's $5,000. We think this is a worthy add-on. Do you approve that we move forward with it? We're still within the budget that the voters approved. And then the board could have a discussion about that.
Right. And that was my big question, as we were, at the full board meeting to really understand, why we were pressing so hard to have a limitation. And again, it wasn't because, the pocketbook's empty, let's go and pilfer it. But understanding that, the ideal situation is that we have this group as we do now, with, representatives from each school and the district office to be able to make those choices. But, do they expect to have this contract for the 18-9 signed before we get into phase one? Because I'm, looking through, and I've got it kind of on a split screen on my computer, that the site planning, in that phase, we would kind of figure out what it is that we wanted to have or not wanted, needed to include. But also looking through, in their proposal itself, that this process for them is somewhat fluid. We can't expect to have everything. There will be some changes because there are things that will come across that, we need to pivot for, or, just want to pivot for.
Yeah. I think we're going to have some flexibility in this because, it's likely to go close to as planned, but it's not going to go exactly as planned. We'll have to be flexible. Now, I think if we were to go back to the board and say, we have this thing we want to add on, it's going to bring us to $31,950. We're probably going to say, yeah, get it under 30,000. That's what the voters approved.
Right. Absolutely.
Absolutely. We should expect that anyway. I would expect that. All right. Well, it looks like the timeline and the tasks are generally established in the proposal, which I think is fine. The first step is to sign a contract and return it with the deposit, which shouldn't be a problem. We'll wait for the updated contract to have the number on it. Once the clock starts ticking, I can imagine that we'll probably want to check in with them maybe once a month. Do you think it needs to be more frequent than that?
I think that I think we're going to need a point person that they're going to have contact with on a very regular basis.
Okay. Would we like to,
especially as we get started?
Would anybody like to nominate somebody, or would anybody like to volunteer to be that point person?
Mark, you're kind of loaded up with a whole lot of other things revolving around the school board, correct?
I am, but what I was actually going to say was that there might be opportunities to kind of switch up who's doing it based on what phase of the project they're in. So I think I might suggest, if I may, that maybe I start as their point person. Then as we get into the more technical aspects, if Derek has the ability, I turn it over to Derek. Sorry, Derek, to nominate you like that.
All right, I'm fine with it.
I think that sharing it amongst us all probably is a better way to go about doing it.
I think it's a great idea, and they might just need like a point person for contact. So, somebody to direct, but it's so clear that we kind of have the board and the public representative here with the board members. We got the central office interest represented with Derek, and we got Tammy and I with the individual schools. So if the question or the task is related to a group or a focus part of the site, then maybe we ought to direct it to those folks that are, that are working in that area.
Absolutely. I think I'd see it more as a point person versus I mean, it's not a decision maker. We'll
Yeah.
have to have a lot of email communication amongst the committee. I think
Yes.
that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I think that's clear. All right, payment schedule is laid out in the proposal. Approval and sign off procedures. I think that it's best that the flow is Edgeworks provides a question to our contact person. Our contact person determines the interested party group, whether it's the administration, central office, or board, pushes the question to that appropriate person with the other members of the committee in copy. And then if it seems like it needs to be something that's brought up in a meeting, then we call a meeting, a public meeting, so that we can discuss it. If it's something that's a simple task, it seems like we ought to be able to handle some of that as an elected representative for that area. Anybody want to comment on that thinking?
I think the only thing I'd say is, as far as, I think if I remember correctly, at the end of each part of their timelines, they want a kind of an official sign off. I'd say that, Matt, as the chair of the committee, that would be you. So as long as we're funneling everything through all of us, and there are no questions, and then I think, you probably take a look at the final materials at the end of that part of the timeline, and give it your sign off or don't.
That sounds good.
Correct.
And I can send things, I will send things to all of you so that you can, certainly see, have an opportunity to raise a hand before we do the official sign off. That's no problem. And in terms of the money, I think Tammy and I can be responsible for making sure the POs get placed. I imagine they'll do an open PO for this so that it can just be triggered for the 3 payments that they're talking about.
I think so.
That's probably the easiest way to do it. Great. Are there any other tasks or areas that you feel like we need to make sure we cover, or that we haven't talked about, or that you're concerned about?
I'm trying to, I don't know why I'm having so much trouble. Here it is. I'm trying to get the RFP uploaded. I thought maybe we'd just take a couple minutes and go over the non-required elements. Because we'll probably want to at least start discussing any, if there are any that we are interested in, start discussing that with them when we meet. And I finally found the file. All right, that is uploaded now.
Okay, I see it there. Everybody see it? You want me to share screen? So just looking at page 2, I think it is, where the optional, no, page 3, where the optional functionalities, is that what you're talking about, Mark?
Yep.
Okay, so some content creation on the homepage video. Dynamic blog feeds. Interactive map of facilities. Ooh, I like it for virtual touring, like a Google Street View.
Yeah, which would be a nice touch for the purpose of selling our schools to the outside public.
And then what did you mean by advanced SEO work? Like, what did you have in mind for that?
I'm not familiar enough with SEO work to really speak to the details, but their proposal includes basic SEO work, which will include keywords and tags.
Yeah.
And there are advanced ways of manipulating search engines, and I don't know them. But they are, I'm sure that these people know how to do it, or at least have somebody that they work with who does. I don't know that any of it will be necessary. It's the type of thing where it's going to take a while for the website to get integrated into search engines, and we kind of see how it is. And if we're not high enough up in searches that we want to be, then we'd have to look to pay to have somebody do more.
Derek, do you have any experience with that, with SEO and any of that stuff in your work?
Little bit, yeah. I'm sure that'll be, wasn't that in their proposal, was SEO? So
The basics of it, yeah.
yeah, I mean, beyond that, it's just going to be like the content that you actually put into, like if we have posts on there or something, or whatever the web page it is, just the actual content when they're, I guess, for like keywords and that kind of deal, you know. I mean, as long as you have like the basic like sitemap and that kind of stuff, or you can actually go into the Google console, the search console, as the website owner, and you can tweak it there for like keywords that you want to be for, or any keywords that you'd like to be directed to your site, like, or show up in the search results. So like if somebody's searching for a certain word, you know, your site will rise in the rankings. That kind of stuff. I mean,
I also noticed, did you guys notice that they have all the Google Analytics built into one of their flow charts?
Yeah, I'm sure that that's built into their CMS.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Any other thoughts about SEO or any of the other optional? I think the integrated login for parents would be really easy. It's just a link, and parents, you know, we send them credentials. That's all managed by PowerSchool.
Yeah, I think when we get to that, we can, I know that there are two options. And you can do the link, or you can actually have it integrated into your site through their API.
Nice.
I'm not sure I see any need for that,
Yeah.
but that may be something that we want to look at in the future.
And this may be related, but the mobile app might be related to the e-commerce piece, you know, in terms of being able to put your credit card on file and pay the lunch fees and snack fees and all that kind of stuff.
It could be their proposal is, and most of the ones we saw are for mobile friendly. It's a mobile friendly website, so it's I always forget the term. But
Oh, the optimization.
No, there's a term, so you can go from any size screen.
responsive web design.
Thank you. Thank you. So, you know, I'm not sure that this is, I never really thought that a mobile app was something we'd want. They're expensive, unless it's just essentially a link to the website. So it's probably not something we want to consider, but we put it on there as a possibility.
Toss it out there.
Yeah, I think, you know, thinking along the same lines, you know, with the advanced SEO work in the mobile app, you know, if we were missing sales as a result, you know, or folks were being redirected to Dover, New Hampshire, Dover, Delaware for some reason. But I think, you know, the folks that are really looking for us information about, you know, our community, they're going to be able to, you know, whinny it down pretty quickly and recognize, oh, you know, I might need to say, you know, Dover Elementary, you know, that'll pop up, high enough and recognize, you know, it's just a couple additional, you know, keystrokes for the user. And it's not one, I think, that would probably cause us to, you know, lose, certainly not losing revenue, you know, as a retailer might feel through a misclick. You know, we're not trying to bait anyone into our website. We want to have, you know, obviously the show for the right reason, and really show off what we can do academically for families considering our towns, you know, the district itself.
Cool. Tammy, you're awfully quiet, but I know you're probably taking notes too. But did you have anything that you wanted to add about those additions?
No,
You're good?
if I hear anything, I'll definitely pipe in.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I think the way this will happen is after phase one, we'll see how things are looking. And then if there's something that sparks out on one of these optional pieces, Mark, did they give you quotes for these optional pieces, or is that something that they would quote after, you know, if we show interest?
I don't think their proposal had quotes for any of them because there were really too many open questions. So even the proposals that did have quotes they weren't reliable numbers. So in all honesty, in going through the reports, I really didn't pay attention to those numbers. I don't think there were any in their proposal though.
Okay. I think there were a couple of vendors that put some numbers in, but must not have been these guys.
Yeah, I didn't see any either. But, you know, a question I would have, like, for example, if, as we're looking at a homepage video, which I think would be a pretty fantastic and fun thing to do, you know, for the students, you know, both past, present, and future, do we have the ability to utilize the funds that have been allocated for this project to hire a secondary vendor outside of Edgeworks, you know, thinking just straight videographer to take care of, you know, some of that editing, splicing, and then say, okay, Edgeworks, here's the raw footage, or here's the edited footage, you know, upload it please. And, you know, do we have that ability?
I don't see why not. It would just take a vote of the board.
Okay.
We'd have to reallocate part of that 40,000 from the quote unquote contract with Edgeworks. I mean, the contract's not going to have 30,000 number in it.
Right.
But, we would just have to reallocate those funds to a different vendor.
Yeah, my interpretation would be that the community has authorized us to up to 30,000, and that it's up to this committee to make recommendations for how that's spent to achieve the goal. And if it is to hire a third-party vendor to produce some content, I think it definitely should go through the board. But I don't see that there would be any barrier.
Sure.
As long as it was a good idea, and it's probably to have a local vendor would probably get a better product than hiring Edgeworks to create this content, because we could maybe get local people to play a greater role in the production, which would be awesome.
Right.
It'd probably be cheaper.
Maybe we hire some of our students that are in secondary school.
Exactly. Maybe there's some video production class at one of the secondary schools that could, we could give them a project and they would make something pretty awesome.
And there definitely is.
Yeah.
I can attest to that. So
there you go. See? So yeah, I don't think that would be a problem. And again, I think as long as we are good communicating with the board and we say, hey, we investigated this one add-on of making a homepage video. We had the idea of including our secondary students. We investigated, here's the budget. It's within the overall scope. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think they would appreciate all that communication. So cool.
Yeah, just from a technical standpoint, I think it's our responsibility to keep the board informed of what we're doing and make sure that they are okay with it. The board, I don't believe there's a place for the board to do any voting on individual items, because I think that's already, the funds have already been allocated to us to spend. But if we were going to go with a different vendor than Edgeworks, it absolutely would require a board vote.
I'd almost think either way, whether it's an Edgework addition or an outside vendor creating content, I still think it's a smart thing and a polite thing to do, to just make sure the board knows what we're thinking, what the cost is, what the impact on the total project is. They're very invested in this project. So
I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
I was just saying from a technical perspective, a vote would be more than redundant, probably.
yeah, I don't think it would be
For them.
necessary. Yeah.
Um,
Cool. All right. Any other thoughts on the optional or other items as have been brought up today about the timeline or the tasks or the project?
I had a question for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned something in regards to e-commerce through Power School. Is that something that is a function in Power School that we could take advantage of should we want to go down that route?
Yeah, so Power School has the ability to partner with various e-commerce platforms that can take funds. The way it works is, my understanding, it's been a little while since my hands have been under the hood of Power School, but there's an integration feature that Power School can integrate with third-party systems that are e-commerce related. And what it does is it pulls from the student record information about their lunch and their snack transactions, presents them into a portal that the third party manages so that parents can get a secure sign on. It keeps their credit card information so we don't have to. And then it communicates that those fee transactions with PowerSchool in such a way that the admin assistant isn't there counting dollar bills every day after snacks. So parents can say, put $20 worth of credit on their snack account. And, you know, as we charge those, it keeps them updated that way. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I was just, the e-commerce portion in the middle of that page was what we were envisioning. That I was just, if it's something that can be done through PowerSchool versus a WooCommerce site or whatever, you know, the Shopify, whatever it is, that might be more convenient, single sign-on for parents type thing.
Yeah, there are a few vendors that work with PowerSchool specifically for this for this purpose. We'd have to do some research on it and find out who they were and if they're any good. But I don't know, Derek, do you know if any of the other schools use an integrated e-commerce solution with PowerSchool?
Or not that I know of.
Okay.
I'm only with Dover and Woodsboro.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that any of the other ones do either, but I mean, that's obviously where we should start. It's with Peter and say, hey, Peter, what do you know about this?
Matt, you also mentioned, and maybe it was just kind of rolling through payment methods, but do families have the opportunity to use EBT cards for charges like this in school?
Good question. I don't believe we have the capacity to accept a card at this point.
Right.
And a lot of families that would have an EBT card would likely qualify for a reduced
free
or a
lunch,
free meal anyway through the state. That information comes through a direct cert list a few times a year, as well as families can apply if they're in between tax years. They can apply for qualification as well. So I would expect that anybody that would have an EBT would either be eligible for a free or reduced, but it makes perfect sense that if they're not and they do have an EBT, that we would be able to accept that as payment for the school meal.
Right. And, you know, also there's some families that, you know, may have been allocated funds and then, you know, their circumstances change. So they're not continually to accrue funds, but they still have a card with funds remaining. So, you know, they wouldn't qualify for free and reduced lunch, but they have the ability to use those funds at school, you know, or the grocery store. I mean, either way, but it was just a kind of an interesting thought that, because I believe I heard that Amazon and some of the online grocery sites are now able to utilize EBT transactions as well. So it's just another opportunity to kind of link our families in, you know, where they might need help.
Right. Yeah, it's a good idea.
I'd be shocked actually if the legislature coming out of COVID doesn't have some form of universal meals that are required across the state. So this may be a moot point going forward also.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's true. And we're free meals at the moment. We're free meals for breakfast and lunch right now anyway. So.
Which is the way I'd like to see us stay personally.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's something we could look at the board level at some point, is what is the cost of the meal program versus the income? As you know, the cost is way more than the income already, even under good circumstances.
Right.
So, great.
I have one other question, just kind of looking at our proposal. You know, and again, this is going to be more of a question for EdWorks when we meet with them, but you know, our proposal is asking for all invoices to be billed prior to June 30th, 2022. And I know we would love to have a late spring launch. Do you think that, you know, it's reasonable that we meet that timeline? And if we don't, for whatever reason, do we need to restate some parameters, board level or otherwise?
I think that's going to come down to a Lori question, whether the funds have to be spent or encumbered by then.
Right. Okay.
And if not, I'm pretty sure we can reallocate them to the next fiscal year, as long as they haven't been spent. But Matt, unless Matt and Tammy or Derek, you know the answer, I would think that that's probably a good question for Lori.
Yeah, because in the same vein, I also noticed that the proposal from Edgeworks had an effective end date, I think, of December 18th, 21. So, you know, hopefully that carries through and they have no issue with keeping that presentation as it is, since we made our decision later than that.
Yeah, and they didn't commit to that per se, but when I notified them that they had been selected based on their proposal, the response was great. We can't wait to get started with you. So
Right.
I kind of took that as a tacit understanding that they're going to be sticking to that price plan.
Okay, excellent.
Going back to your other question about funding. So typically, when we're using regularly funded budget funds for projects, they do go over into a surplus at the end of the year, and they're not accessible after July 1st. Now, this particular project was funded through a special article. So my question to Lori would be, does that change any of the accounting? And then certainly we should ask her if, you know, what happens if this does go beyond June 30th? Do we need to be thinking about that? It wouldn't hurt to just ask the question and think about what our options are.
I don't have your agenda open, Matt, but I do have two topics I want to talk about before we close out the day. So I just want to throw that out there.
So this actually ends the third section, the new business section, but are there any other agenda items such as Mark's two topics?
So I'm going to bring up two topics.
Go ahead, Mark.
The first one is domain names. And I think this goes out to all of us, but probably more for Derek. Through myself, we have a 10-year lease, whatever they're calling it these days, on RVUSD.net, which obviously is our primary domain. I'd hate to see us give up Dover School and Wardsboro School, though, the two that have been around for a long time. So even though I don't think we're going to be using them directly, I'd want to have them redirect to RVUSD. So question one is, Derek, do you want me to turn that domain over to you for your management? I'm happy to do it. I mean, a couple DNS entries every once in a while, that's really it. And do we need to put funds into the budget or ask the board for funds to maintain the two old domains?
Yeah, I think we switched those to Google domains, right?
I believe we did as well. It was fractional. It's $10 for 3 years or something.
So it's not something that we really need to, as long as we're just, you know, $10 for 3 years, we'll just maintain them.
Yeah,
It may even be $10 a year if that.
yeah, it's super cheap.
Okay. So moving forward, Derek, if you want, I use Name Solo as my domain provider, but we can transfer it, whatever. You and I can work that out if that's something that you want to do. The second topic is board docs. I think this is a much bigger topic. I just kind of want to broach it now. Not only does River Valleys need management of board docs, but when we kind of 2-3 years ago, when we first started talking about this whole website concept, one of the things that conversation that Bill and I had was because there didn't seem to be any interest in the SU moving forward with a new website at the time, that we would try to, in our development of a website, we would try to develop a system of board docs that could get integrated, that other districts and the SU could get integrated into moving forward, if that was something that was so desired. Currently, our system is awful. I mean, it's, you know, emailing files back and forth and trying to find things on WCSU board website. Anyway, so it's just, I think it's a topic we need to discuss. We'll ultimately need to make some decisions on as to whether we just want Edgeworks to integrate with Google Drive, or we want to use whatever document management system they have built into their CMS, or a third-party document management system.
You want to comment on that, Derek?
I love Google Drive. I think that's the best route to go. It's so easy to share the documents between everybody. And it's in the cloud. It's always backed up in there. You're never going to lose it. It's easily, you can easily edit everything on any platform.
Like the issue is our public facing documents.
Well, yeah, we can still share those outside the domain, right?
Oh, yeah, and they are. I mean, I had a proposal to Peter to stop using PDFs because Meg was having a hard time converting files to them and just using, you know, the doc files or the spreadsheet files. They're not editable as long as you don't give the public permission to edit them. That didn't go anywhere, but I think I personally would want a system that looks professional, not just links. For internal, yeah, Google Drive is perfect. But for something that's public facing, I'd want something that the public can easily access, search through, and is quick for them to pull up what they're looking for.
I still go with Google Drive. I love it. I use it for a lot of things. You can just make a link on the website to the file, and then you can that's the only file you have to edit, and you don't have to keep like re-uploading a new file every time you make an edit.
Yeah, I guess I agree with 100%, which is why I proposed going away from PDFs, because they really didn't serve any purpose for the public. But how it's presented to the public, though, I mean, right now they go to Wyndham Central Board and you got to click through, you know, a ton of links to find stuff. Sorting's not possibility. It's not possible. I get complaints from people regularly saying I can't find the doc, which is why I upload our board docs, you know, for every meeting to a public Google Drive folder, so that everybody has access. So I think it's something we should think about. I think we want a back-end document management system because we're talking about what, 5 districts in the SU, public documents. There have to be controls on what can get edited, you know, approved minutes can't be editable type thing. So I think it's a bigger conversation. I've spent the last 18 years of my life in the Google world, since it was an alpha testing system. So I'm all in on Google. I just don't think it's a public facing document management system. So
let me ask a couple of questions. Was there any, Mark, do you recall in Edgeworks' proposal whether there was any, sorry, I got my flashlight on you. Was there any way for them, first of all, did they talk about managing documents at all in their proposal?
No, well, I'm sure they did to some extent. I've seen some of the other websites that they've done, and they've got some sort of back-end document management system. I don't know what it is, but you know, they present board docs in a far better way than we currently have it presented. The idea would be to simplify the process so that, you know, we don't have things going through Meg, for example, where she has to convert files. And so we've got, you know, standard headings and, you know, we've got what, 1,000 students in the SU or something, and 5 districts. So we can standardize things. We can do it in RVUSD because this is our site, you know,
Right.
this, you know, it's building something that if we can sell the SU and other districts on going with Edgeworks in the future, that it's something that can easily get integrated in. And that would be my goal of this idea, is that we're not just doing something for us.
Yeah, no, I think that's wise, is to look beyond. So my second question that's related to this is, I think that the advantage of the Google Drive as the CMS in the back end, kind of managing the files and the permissions and all that, makes sense for the schools and the districts that have been using it. But Are you or is anybody else here aware of any other front end presentation that's alternative to the look of a punch through Google Drive folder? That would look a little more professional. But what you said about naming convention and sorting and all that stuff is really important too. But I'm just wondering if there's an alternative front end that anybody has seen that would take a Google Drive backend and present it in a way that looks a little bit slicker than the way the Google Drive looks in its little frame on a Google website. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. I mean, Google Drive has a whole API. So I'm sure it could be done by a skilled developer. Whether or not I've seen it, that I don't know, because of other systems I've seen very well could have used Google Drive as a back end.
Yeah.
You know, there are professional services out there that do nothing but board docs. You know,
Right.
they
I've
build
seen those.
services.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I haven't thought they were all that great.
No, they're not. The ones I've seen aren't either.
Yeah. So I think it will be interesting to see from Edgeworks what they have and what they can, you know, what they can provide. And then I think we can decide what we want to go, where we want to go from there. I do see, I have always, you know, I've been working on this for 3 years now. I've always seen this as kind of the big issue of the back end for us.
Yeah. And it's been, honestly, Mark, even before you arrived on the scene, historically, it actually, believe it or not, has gotten better in the last 3, 4, 5 years. But before that, it was even more cumbersome and more challenging for the central office staff. I remember at one point, just policies alone, there were 13 school boards. We had 900 and some odd active policy documents. You know, when you consider a warned, an approved, and a revised version of all the different policies. It was insane.
So yeah, I know when I work with Meg now, you know, when we warn an updated policy, you know, I've got a reminder in my email, don't remove what's there because that's still what's active, you know,
Right.
and then we end up with 2. And so I just document, I mean, I had consulted with a number of law firms, so I'm used to really sophisticated high-end document management. We don't need something like that.
No.
We just need something that's easy for everybody to use,
And
including
looks nice.
the press, and looks nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That seems like a short order. I don't see that. Let's let Edgeworks make a proposal for us.
Exactly.
Oh, was that both your items, Mark?
Yeah. Yep. Just the domain names and the board docs.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other items, other tasks, or other agenda items rather that we need to add on here?
Nope.
Okay. Well, going forward then, it looks like our next meeting is February 2nd via Zoom, and that's with Ed, right?
That is with Ed and Cynthia.
And Cynthia. Awesome.
Yep.
That'll be great. Ed Rooney is his last name, right?
I just saw.
I had to look, but I didn't want to say yes
it.
because that's Ferris Bueller's Principle.
That's how I remember. I'm like, Mr. Rooney.
That's why I wasn't saying that yes, that's correct, because I didn't know where I was placing the name.
Yeah, it is.
All I
Okay.
can picture is Cameron pretending to be Sloane's dad. Rooney? Anyway,
Funny, I go to his secretary. Oh, gee, Ed, you shouldn't throw anybody, not with your back.
I don't trust him as far as I can throw him.
Yep.
Oh,
That's the
good
one.
times.
One of the
All right.
classic movies.
Now we'll never forget Ed's last name.
Yeah.
All right,
One other
guys.
question for everyone. With the recordings of these, do we want to, like, I put all the policy committee recordings on a YouTube channel. And it's just a RVUSD website, YouTube channel. We could throw it on the same one or create a different one. If they're public meetings, I think that they should be available.
I agree. Let's do it on the same one so people don't have to go hunting around for a different channel.
Okay, so when you get the link, when Zoom sends you the link, just send it to me with the password so I can download it.
Will do.
and I'll upload it to the to it, and I'll send everybody the link to it. It's on all the policy agendas, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
It's nice when it's the same, because then they might stumble upon another recording that's helpful.
Or when we don't want them to.
All right, any other business? All right, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. I guess we could have a formal motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Chad makes a motion. Do we need a second?
Nope, actually, Robert's rule says you don't even need a motion.
That's right.
There
All
we
right,
go.
guys, thanks so much. And Mark, I'll send you the link. Tammy, thank you for taking the notes. And we'll see everybody on February 2nd. Now, Mark, are you providing that link for us? Yes. you
Yeah,
did already.
I did already. It's in the calendar invite. If you didn't get it, let me know and I'll send it to you. And
Perfect.
perfect.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great
All right.
weekend.
Take care, everyone.
Everyone, take care.
Bye-bye.